Welcome to Northwest Spiritism. The title of this presentation is How Do You Map Out Your Trials on Earth? Did you know that each person's life has a definite plan? Well then, learn how to cope with your planned life. It will make the journey more enjoyable. I am sure you have read where we are here on Earth to learn. That, essentially, we are in a classroom, learning by doing by experiences. Did you also know that most probably you were the one that selected your intended coursework? So when things get tough, you have no one to blame but yourself. We live our lives believing that we exist in the realm of chance. Somehow, our parents conceived us. We grew up and went to school in a location, not of our own choosing, but by chance. Where our parents decided to live at the time, another decision mandated by random occurrences. We go to college or into profession by some whim or happenstance. Sometimes an uncle knows a person who knows another person. We strive and learn through our early adulthood. Sometimes we succeed and others we fail miserably. We curse the events that led us to despair. Somehow we survive, and at each step gathering some wisdom along the way. We detest the lessons we had to learn, but nevertheless in our hearts we recognize the value of our accumulated knowledge. But what if? Just think about this for a moment. What if all this was planned? No, not down to the last detail, but the broad strokes, the major and not so major events of your life, preordained, and not prearranged by some distant entity, but by you. Yes, you are the one who is responsible for this mess, this life of yours, both the good and the bad. Let's start at the beginning. In the Spirits book, Allan Kardec codified the answer as to why we must reincarnate. Question 132 was, what is the aim of the incarnation of spirits? And the answer is, it is a necessity imposed on them by God, as the means of attaining perfection. For some of them it is an expiation, for others a mission. In order to attain perfection, it is necessary for them to undergo all the vicissitudes of corporeal existence. It is the experience acquired by expiation that constitutes its usefulness. Incarnation also has another aim, namely that of fitting the spirit to perform his share in the work of creation, for which purpose he is made to assume a corporeal apparatus in harmony with the material state of each world into which he is sent, and by means of which he is enabled to accomplish the special work, in connection with that world which has been appointed to him by the divine ordering. He is thus made to contribute his quota towards the general wealth while achieving his own advancement. Planning for your new life. How is this done? Well, in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, psychographed by Yvonne Pierre, a group of spirits are told about the planning of a reincarnation by a veteran of reincarnation planning. He says, the planning of the events relating to a reincarnation will be rigorously studied, firmed up, and revised, always in accordance with utmost justice, in fulfillment of the highest expression of the immortal decree sanctioned by the Divine Master, which explains all the problems that afflict and bound humanity, to each according to his deeds. Hence, our plans begin with what we must pay for in our previous life, and what we wish to learn in our next life. It is as if we are in high school, looking through all of the college catalogs that have finally arrived, attempting to ascertain what our future will be. What are the basic conditions of planning? Again, in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, it is explained thusly. Normally, candidates for reincarnation choose their own trials, the acres of thorns that will decelerate the days of their earthly lives, and where they will get the chance to amend the consequences of their guilty past. They themselves will beseech the guiding power for new opportunities that will enable them to demonstrate their repentance and their desire to enter a redemptive path that will offer them the chance to correct their inferior impulses that drove them to their wrongful conduct. These trials can be experienced in a relatively sound body if the mental suffering is extreme, or in a deformed body, or in one stricken by an incurable disease. It all depends on the extent of the offense and the demerits involved. The lecture above was given to suicides, which is why the choice of a sound body with more experiences for learning than trials for payment was not covered. However, the concept remains the same. We ourselves will direct the trials and in what type of physical covering we shall inhabit for our next life. The one you live in now, while you are reading this article, with the exact eyes you chose. How do you plan for your body? Choosing your physical body is more difficult than it seems. You know that imperfect nose of yours? Well, you determined not to have the latest fashion in noses. How do we know that? In the book Missionaries of the Light, psychographed by Francisco C. Xavier, inspired by the spirit Andre Louise, a woman who is actively planning for her trials in the next life talks about her reasoning. I have been advised by benefactors here that I should avoid re-entering Earth with flawless body lines. If I do avoid it, I might have a better success in the tasks I'm planning. I would be grateful if the thyroid and the parathyroid glands were not so perfectly outlined. As you know, my task will not be easy. I need to recapture a large spiritual heritage. I must avoid any possibility of failure, and perfect physical harmony would get in the way of my goals. My new companion gave me an expressive look and said to her, "You're right. Physical seductiveness is a real danger, not only for those who radiate its influence, but also for those who are subject to it." "Yes, I would prefer an unattractive body," she replied. "I'm not interested in a body like Venus. I'm interested in the redemption of my spirit for eternity." Therefore, those of you who don't care for your body, think hard on what other matters you should be concentrating, not focusing on your vanity. You picked the model you're in for a reason. But at the very least, as you spot someone else looking perfect, you can say to yourself, they didn't plan very well. Given what we just heard, what about the influence of DNA? One would ask, what about the DNA we inherit from our parents? Doesn't that lay the foundation of our form? Andre Louise asked the same question. What about the law of physiological heredity? Well, his answer was, it works with an inalienable control upon all evolving beings. But of course it is subject to the influence of those who attain qualities that are superior to the general environment. Furthermore, when individuals interested in new experiences in the physical realm are deserving of intercessory services, the higher powers can impress certain modifications on matter from the embryological development onward if they determine that alterations are needed for the work of redemption. Therefore, we must start with what our parents offer. Next, our own paraspirit, that part of us which envelops our intended body, will also affect our germination while in the womb. Lastly, the spirit world is able to perform minute surgery on our DNA to alter our appearances and innate abilities. Not only do we determine the complete diagram of our bodies, but we also plan in advance afflictions that await us. Andre talks to a spirit who works in the reincarnation planting center. Manassas, in the heavenly city, knows the Lar. He points out the extent of our future planning. Here is a plan for the future reincarnation of a friend of mine. Do you see some dark spots from the descending colon to the sigmoid loop? This indicates that he will suffer from a large ulcer in the area as soon as he becomes an adult. Nevertheless, he has chosen it. Now I wonder why I had my kidney stones. What exquisite torture. What in the heck did I do to deserve that? It must have been wicked, and I most certainly deserved it. But I wish I knew so I could take some satisfaction from learning my lesson with my pain. But I tell you this, whatever I did, I won't do it again. Our body is but one consideration for our next life. We must also plan the trials, the events that push us forward in our exploration of knowledge. There's an example of a suicide, Geronimo, who defrauded his business associates, lost all of his money, and fled the situation he created by committing suicide. He left behind a wife, a son, and 3 daughters, all left destitute. Geronimo tells his friends about the plans for his next life. I won't be able to have children, but not looking after my family, by rejecting halfway through the honorable responsibility of being head of the household in order to help me ascend in merit, I put myself in the wretched position of not being granted the chance of building a family and being a father again in my next existence. However, in order to mitigate my ugly behavior towards Muriel and my children, I have promised Mother Mary, the sublime mother of my Redeemer, whose material solicitude rehabilitated Margarita and Albino to employ all my efforts to assist orphan children, to somehow build shelters for them, and to become their guardian as if they were my own. Geronimo has planned his family life to compensate for what he did in his previous life. He has also planned his financial status in his next life. His friends express happiness in his helping orphans, but they are worried that he will have the financial resources to follow through. He informs them that at first he will be rich, born into a wealthy family. Next he says, "May heaven allow it, indeed, my friend, because before or after financial ruin that awaits me during my expiatory existence, I shall have become the supporter of many, many orphans." Notice how for each of his major failings, he will have to redeem himself in one way or another. Once again, he shall recognize the despair of bankruptcy and the complete withdrawal of all of his old friends. He shall deeply feel the pull of suicide, but if he wishes to be victorious in his new life, he will have to resist that urge with all of his facilities. Our life is laid out in great detail. We don't have the freedom to not participate in our trials. Our freedom lies in our response to events. Therefore, it is better to attack life with the attitude of a child. Keep an open mind. Accept what you have to learn. Be grateful for the opportunity to improve. Gain wisdom whenever you can. And internalize how this trial will help you in future lives. This understanding will carry you through multiple lives as you ascend as a spirit.